It looks simple: a long tube, a heavy barrel, a curved belt feeding steel into a hungry throat. But that tube holds a truth armies rarely speak about plainly. The Browning M2 is not just a weapon. It is an instrument of permanence, a single gun that changed how wars feel. One round from it can stop an engine, shred a truck, pierce light armor, and end a life with a force no human body was built to take. And because of that force, every battlefield it touched was altered, physically and morally. At the turn of the 20th century, John Moses Browning sketched firearms the rest of the world would chase for a century. The M2's lineage begins in that mind, a design born from a simple idea: more power, longer reach, unquestionable reliability. Chambered for the .50 Browning, the .50 BMG, the M2 was created to give infantry and vehicles a weapon that could reach farther and hit harder than rifle-caliber guns. It was heavy by choice, a stable platform for a cartridge that carried tremendous energy. It was also designed to be familiar: feed with belts, fire in sustained bursts, and keep going when everything else stopped. From the 1930s into World War II, the M2 entered service and proved itself in desert sand, Arctic cold, jungle heat, and open sea. Tanks, trucks, aircraft and ships mounted it. Infantry crews carried spare barrels and spare belts. When the shooting started, the M2 was there. The numbers tell part of the story. A half-inch bullet. A mass that can smash through metal. Effective ranges measured in thousands of meters. A cyclic rate that can empty belts faster than human hands can feed them. But the numbers hide the real truth. This gun transforms a soldier's relationship to distance and consequence. A rifle brings death close, personal. The M2 pushes death into the distance and keeps it there. The thunder of hits a world away, visible only as smoking wrecks and collapsing forms. Its power created doctrine. Armies learned to use the M2 as an anti-material weapon. Stop engines, punch through lightly armored vehicles, deny terrain by withering exposed troops. It became the go-to tool for suppression. Sweep a roadside, hold a checkpoint, keep an enemy from moving at all. In Normandy and North Africa, on the Eastern Front and in the deserts of the Pacific, crews learned the M2's twin lessons. It saved lives and it sentenced others. A veteran loader remembers the smell, gun oil, hot brass, and the metallic tang carried on the wind after a belt finished. A tanker felt invincible watching rounds drill holes through enemy reconnaissance cars. An aircraft crew trusted the M2's wing-mounted fury to stop an attacking fighter. But for the men who faced it, the experience was different. Convoys hit by .50 caliber fire folded like paper. Men who thought themselves safe in the back of a truck found themselves exposed to a blunt, unstoppable force. The noise wasn't just sound, it was a signal that survival had been taken away. For crews, the M2 demanded rituals. Barrels were changed when they overheated. Belts were kept dry and oiled just so. A gunner learned to aim not only for a body but for a radiator, a wheel, a fuel line, the small, functional things whose destruction meant a larger victory. That practicality, detached and efficient, is what made the M2 lethal and clinical. Power brings temptation. The M2's range and lethality meant it could be used in ways that blurred the line between combat and cruelty. Mounted on patrol vehicles, it became a tool of dominance, an instant way to cow a village or clear a street. From helicopters in later wars to armored pickups in irregular conflicts, the M2 accompanied forces that sometimes used overwhelming fire to subdue populations, not just enemy troops. There are also quieter, uglier truths. A single M2 consumes ammunition by the thousands. Supply chains had to run without interruption. Factories ground out belts of cartridges. Men shipped across oceans to feed a gun that demanded never to be empty. War became, in part, a question of sustaining the appetite of that tube. And then there is memory. In villages where the M2 had roared, survivors kept a different kind of record: burned out engines, holes in walls, photographs of the missing. The M2's design makes it brutally honest. What you see is what you get. No technology masks the result. It does not decide targets. It obeys a hand and a command. But the consequences of those commands ripple outward. Engineers admire it for reliability. Historians note its ubiquity. But ethicists ask the hard question: what does it mean when a single weapon can so easily convert technological advantage into asymmetric suffering? When does an instrument of defense become an instrument of oppression? The Browning M2 forces that question. It pushes us to consider not just how wars are won, but what we accept as cost. By the time World War II ended, the Browning M2 had already become a legend, a weapon that refused to grow old. While most guns faded into museums, the M2 stayed on the front lines. It didn't matter whether it was mounted on a Sherman tank in 1945 or on a Humvee in 2010. the sound was the same. That heavy, rhythmic thunder that rolled across hills and deserts, reminding everyone within miles that something powerful was watching. But its survival raised a question that few wanted to ask out loud. Why does a machine built almost a century ago still define modern warfare? The answer lies in its simplicity and in its perfection. The M2 was never replaced because it didn't need to be. It was durable, easy to repair, and devastatingly effective. No matter how advanced weapons became, guided missiles, drones, precision bombs, every army still wanted one thing: a gun that never failed. And that's what the M2 was. Its design was so flawless that even today many US military units still use the exact same receiver designs first tested in the 1930s. Few machines in history, of any kind, have served for so long with so little change. But while soldiers admired its reliability, others saw something else. A symbol of how war refuses to evolve morally even when the technology does. During the Cold War, the Browning M2 became more than a weapon. It became a presence. Mounted on American bases around the world, it watched from guard towers and checkpoints, its silhouette unmistakable against the horizon. In Korea, it ripped through advancing waves of troops in frozen valleys. In Vietnam, it turned jungles into infernos, mounted on patrol boats and helicopters, its thunder echoing across the Mekong. And in countless proxy wars, both sides used it, sometimes even the same guns, captured, traded, or repurposed. It had no loyalty, only function. Everywhere it appeared, it reshaped the sound of conflict, the deep, rolling heartbeat of modern firepower. Ask any veteran who manned one, and they'll tell you the same thing. The M2 felt alive. The recoil shook your bones. The barrel glowed red after long bursts. And the sound wasn't just loud, it was physical, pressing into your chest. For soldiers, it was both protection and power. They trusted it more than any other weapon. When the M2 spoke, enemies stopped moving. But that feeling came with a quiet cost. Many gunners would later describe what it did to their minds, how distance made things easier in the moment but heavier later on. From far away, the M2 made killing feel mechanical. You didn't see faces, you saw shapes. And when the noise stopped, those shapes stayed with you. As television brought war into living rooms, the Browning M2 appeared again and again, in black and white newsreels, then in color broadcasts from Vietnam. Its silhouette became part of war's visual language, the barrel rising from a sandbag wall, the ammunition belt swinging in the sun. It was supposed to represent strength, but over time, it began to represent something else: endurance. Not just of the weapon but of the cycle it fed. Because wherever it went, new wars followed. Not because of it but with it, like a shadow that could never be left behind. When US forces returned to combat in the Middle East, the Browning M2 was waiting for them. Mounted on armored trucks, it watched over convoys, guarded bases, and provided firepower against ambushes. For the soldiers who manned it, it was still the same old Ma-Deuce. It jammed rarely, hit hard, and gave them confidence. But the world around it had changed. Now every shot could be recorded, every impact broadcast. And the weapon that once symbolized defense began to appear in footage that made even its users uneasy. Checkpoints gone wrong, vehicles torn apart, civilians caught between confusion and chaos. The Browning M2 was still just a machine. But it had become a lens, showing how far we'd come technologically, and how little we'd learned about restraint. It's hard to call the M2 evil. It has saved lives by protecting troops, stopping ambushes, defending convoys. But its very effectiveness made it a tool for everything, good and bad. Used properly, it could save a platoon. Used carelessly, it could level a street. That's the paradox of every great weapon. The better it works, the more often it's used. And when a gun lasts 100 years, it means humanity has found more reasons to keep fighting than to change. The Browning M2 is more than a weapon. It's a mirror. It shows us the best and worst of ourselves, our ingenuity, our endurance, our refusal to let go of the past. It doesn't care who uses it or why. It just works. And maybe that's the problem. Because when a weapon becomes perfect, it stops being questioned. It becomes accepted. The dark truth about the Browning M2 isn't its brutality. It's that after nearly a century of combat, humanity has built nothing better, or more terrible, than the gun that never went away. If you want to hear more stories like this, about the inventions, weapons, and men that shaped the world for better or worse, help us out with subscribing. Because behind every piece of steel and firepower, there's a story about what it costs to build it, and what it costs to use it.